This is Rikki Soumpholphakdy here for The Ring, and I am here with a special guest, my guy, pound for pound number one, Terence Bud Crawford. What's up, man? Welcome back to New York.
What's going on, man? I'm just chilling. You know what I mean? I'm good to be back, but it's raining.
Yo.
It's storming in Omaha, so it's better than being where I was.
It's funny, man. Like we've been back and forth. We were in where were we at? We was in London earlier in the year. Then we went to Riyadh, and then we were in New York for Keyshawn, and now we're back here, man. It seems like we're all over. Do you ever get a moment to just catch your breath, man?
To be honest, with everything that's going on, no, not really. Then uh, being a full time father at home, dogs, real estate. So I'm pretty much a busy man.
I get that, man. It's awesome to see your kids here too, man. Like it's round the clock coverage, man, when it comes to being a parent. So that's awesome. Speaking of New York, right? The last time we were here, I wanted to get your thoughts on Keyshawn. Keyshawn won his first world title against Dennis Baranchek, man, and you and I were sitting together watching the fight. What did you think? And did you expect that stoppage to come so early for Keyshawn? What was your assessment on the fight?
Keyshawn looked spectacular. I did expect him to get a stoppage. I knew Branchek wasn't on his level. Um, Keyshawn's special, and he's going to do big things in the sport of boxing.
Yeah, man, he's definitely special. He's a special talent, and he made it look super easy. And I commend you for always showing up for all your guys. Like you literally were in Riyadh for Shakur, and then the week before you were with Keyshawn in New York, and you never skip a beat with them. Um, who do you want to see Keyshawn possibly fight next? I know everyone's always like, oh, there's Tank out there, and this guy, there's Navarrete, there's Murataya. But if you had a choice as big bro, like anyone, any specific name you want to see for Keyshawn?
Um, there's a lot of good names out there at 35 and at 40. He's ready for them all. I'm gonna just say all of them. It don't matter who they is. Uh, he ready for the big test and the big names, and he's going to do well with each and every one of them, and the world will see in due time.
Yeah, man, it's interesting because I feel like 135 is white hot right now, where like they got you got Shakur, you got Tank, you got Keyshawn, and you got guys like Abdullah coming up. So, and you got all the possibilities at 142, so it'll be interesting. But I wanted to move on to Shakur, right? We were in Riyadh, we watched Shakur fight Josh Padley last minute, supposed to be Floyd Schofield. What was your assessment on Lil Bro's fight against Josh Padley?
I think he did excellent. He was sharp. He was letting his hands go. He was standing in the pocket more. Um, he probably got hit just a little bit too much because he was trying to please everybody that's saying, "Oh, he can't do this, he can't do that." I talked to him and told him, "Just be yourself. Just keep winning. It doesn't matter what the naysayers say and what the people that's having certain agendas against him will have to say. He's a great fighter, and these fighters can't beat him. So they want to make him a normal fighter and fight the fight that they want him to fight because he's unnatural. He have his own style, and there's no fighter in the history I can't remember that have a style like Shakur Stevenson.
Yeah, it's like no one can touch him, man. I feel like Shakur. I was talking about it with Sean George. He's a Yang's trainer. We were talking about this on the flight back. Shakur's just got that thing, man, that you just can't teach, and that awareness is like on another level. Even when I'm like in a room with Shakur, he's just always on his p's and q's, and I see that same thing in the ring. Um, but I wanted to circle back and bring it in Keyshawn and Shakur back into this conversation. Not casuals, but boxer fans are always like, "Oh, they should fight. Oh, they're being wussies. Oh, that brother shit needs to go out the window." You being big bro for both of them, right? What's your assessment on if they were to fight, if they don't fight? What are your thoughts on that? And if it were to happen, how torn would you feel? I'm not gonna ask you to make a pick because that's probably uncalled for. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts is people that's having an agenda that they need to fight is only saying that to protect certain fighters. You have never heard they need to fight each other until they start calling out certain individuals, or they have same opponent in common that they want to fight. If they was to fight each other, it would be their decision. It's a business. At the end of the day, they're going to make a lot of money at the end of the day, and may the best man win. But would I like to see them fight each other? No, I wouldn't. You know, they came up together. Keyshawn practically been knowing Shakur since he was a little junior, and so I met Keyshawn through Shakur on the Olympic team, and Shakur telling me how great Keyshawn going to be when he get older and how good he is, and this is before the Olympics, so I would be torn if they was to fight each other, but at the same time, if they was to fight each other and they did decide, it's a sport at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They're going to make money together and, possibly shake hands afterwards. Mayweather and Zab Judah was good friends, and they somehow got in the ring with each other. I don't know how their relationship is compared to Shakur and Keyshawn, but it's definitely doable and possible. Roach and Gervonta, I don't know if they was friends or not, but they was from the same area. So it's definitely doable.
Yeah, and you kind of went through it once, right? Shakur fought Jamel Herring. Like, that was tough. And I could tell, like, on social media, you weren't trying to show any favoritism and whatnot. But just how hard was it being in the middle of that, considering you were training with Jamel and he was trained by Bomac and Shakur's little bro? What was that experience like, being in the middle of all that?
Oh, man, it was crazy. When you can't root or when you can't give your input on something, it's hard. Seeing a brother prepare to go to war and you can't tell him, hey, man, you slipping right here or you messing up right here, because he fighting another brother. So when you neutral, you just kind of typically try to stay away from the whole situation. You don't want to train together. You don't want to, be seen working out together because you don't want the other party to feel like you taking sides and things like that.
Yeah, man, I imagine that was really tough. But I think, as an outsider looking at it, I think you did a good job at keeping it neutral and just letting the things play out. And you showed love to both guys after. So I think that was the great thing. But you mentioned earlier Tank Davis, right? And I think you were kind of alluding to the fact because I think Tank said in his media scrum last week before the fight, he was like, yeah, Shakur and Keyshawn should fight each other. He spoke on you a little bit. We'll get to that in a second. But how do you feel when a fighter is like, well, they got to fight each other for the right to fight me? But if we're being honest, what did Lamont Roach do to get that fight? He's not on the same level as Shakur Keyshawn. So I want to get your assessment on that.
He just see both of them as a threat. And he want them to take each other out so he don't have to fight one of the two. If Shakur and Keyshawn was to fight each other and one of them have a loss, then that will be an excuse not to fight them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Boxing's is a strange place, man, and I hate when that conversation has to come up. I just feel like the best fights should just happen, and the whole thing, and the same thing kind of happened with you, right? When you were trying to get the Errol fight, he was like, he got to handle his stuff over there before he can start talking to me. And, but things played out how they played out. You got the win against Spence. But going back to Tank, he called you a hater. Said you was hating on him. He said, I know you guys don't like each other. You made it very clear in another interview that you respect him as a fighter. You think he's a great fighter, but on a personal level, he's not your cup of tea. What's your response to him saying you're a hater? And it's like, F you.
What have I ever hated on Tank about? There's nothing to hate on him about. When you compare the careers, it's like night and day, boy. You can't even tie my shoestrings, So to call me a hater is crazy. I never hated on him. Always supported him. You know, I always watched his fights. I never said he couldn't fight. You know, when you go back to things like a person of being a hater, Tank came at me first. I never said nothing to him. He said that I had the glass chin. He the one that said if he touched my chin, I was going to sleep.
I remember that.
You know, he the one that started, you know, this I would say beef or whatever you want to call it, disagreement with Terence Crawford because I was coming up to fight Spence. He the one that was saying my name. I never said nothing about him. So who's really the hater?
That's fair. And then I think in the same scrum, he brought up the Errol fight, and he's one of the individuals saying Errol was not the same after you fought him. He was like, I watched that fight. That wasn't the same Errol, insinuating that your win didn't count because of the car accident. What's your feeling on that?
It is what it is, you know. Hey, we got in the ring, we fought, I won. I'm not gonna go back and forth on something that happened, you know, 2 years ago. So they can say whatever they want to try to tarnish my victory and say Errol wasn't the same, but he was the same when he fought Danny Garcia.
Right.
He was
And
the
he fought
same
Ugas.
when he fought Ugas. So I'm not gonna go back and forth with the people that still butthurt about the victory.
Well, there's a lot of those on boxing Twitter, man. Like, you called it, and what was that? Oh, was that OKC where you and Spence, and you were like, I know what you guys are gonna say after it happens, and just how, like, I wouldn't say like that feeling of I told you so, but that surreal feeling, like that, I literally called that word for word that it was gonna be like that. When did you ever have a moment like that after the fight when you beat Spence?
No, to be honest, like a lot of people expected me to like talk crazy and trash them and you know just be crazy about the victory. But it was just like it was all respect because I never had a problem with Spence.
Right.
I never disliked his Spence. I always stated that I was a fan of Spence and that I thought he was a great fighter. I just felt as if he couldn't be me, you know, and I wanted the opportunity to prove it. So when the time came, I was mad that it took so long, but at the same time, I was glad that it was happening.
Yeah.
You know, so when I was victorious, I was just like, okay, now I got that off my back.
Yep.
You know, because I didn't know how my career moving forward would be without having that fight. You know.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, everyone wanted to see that fight, and I hated from a personal level. I hated how everyone was pinning the whole, well, he's with Top Rank, he's with PBC, or what has he done to deserve that fight? I'm like, well, he's a multi-weight world champ, he's a former undisputed world champ. I don't see how, you know, and you got out of your contract with Top Rank, you ended up leaving and ended up, but you remember you almost had that fight done in 22, and it didn't happen, so they couldn't use that excuse anymore. So it was kind of like, you know, what is it? What is it? So you finally got over the hump in 23. You did that. You took care of business. But now we fast forwarded. Now there's a rumored fight between you and Canelo Alvarez that is in the works. Man, you walk around, you know, what, about $175? I think. What did you post? It was like 180? What was it?
It was 186.
So that's a mega fight. That's commercially probably the biggest fight this sport's going to see in a long time. I think personally bigger than the Spence fight. You're a big name now. You're a household name. Canelo is who he is. He's Canelo. What goes in your thought process, man? Like, you know what? I just had one fight at 54. I'm gonna go up and go to 68 and take care of this business against Canelo. I don't care if it's Canelo.
My thought process about moving up 2 more divisions is doing something that never been done before. You know, when you hear the media, when you hear the experts talk, you always hear all of them say, you never seen a smaller great fighter beat a big great fighter. You know, so just hearing just all the things that surrounded behind the talks of Crawford going up to fight Canelo is intriguing.
Yeah.
You know, he's the bigger, he's the stronger, he's the most powerful fighter. These are the things that they said about Spence. You know, so we all know what Canelo brings to the table. We all know that Canelo went up to 175. We all know that. But we don't know how Crawford can compete with Canelo. We don't know. So we know what to expect when we see Canelo come into the ring and when Canelo fights, but we don't know what to expect when we see Crawford because we never seen Crawford at this weight before.
Mm-hmm.
We never seen Crawford take a punch by a bigger guy like Canelo that's punching. We never seen it. So the thing is, we know Crawford can box. We know Crawford can move. But can Crawford take a punch by Canelo? We seen him hurt by Gamboa at 135. You know, we seen him hurt by Mean Machine, they will all say, which I don't believe I was hurt. Well, I'll stand on it. I wasn't hurt, but that's the narrative.
Yep.
We seen it.
Mm-hmm.
What is he gonna do when Canelo hit him? That's what's intriguing.
And then I think that's the big thing, man. We don't know, right? I've seen you spar at the top regime a few times. This was before your Spence fight. You were sparring some big ass dudes. Like they look like light heavyweights, super middleweights. And I know you're naturally a strong guy, and you spar with your boy Steven Nelson plenty of times too, right? He's like a light heavyweight, and it's like, you know, I feel like people underestimate the fact that, you know, just because you fought at smaller weights that you don't know how to hold your own. And I try to remind people too about like Roberto Duran. He fought Iran Barkley, I think, for the middleweight title. I think Duran started what, 35? Yeah. Like, and it was probably unheard of at the time. People forget that it's possible. It's possible. So, like you said, I think it's just a matter of what happens in the ring, and I think people need to also remember like you can punch too, man. And I think they're also getting misconstrued with your last fight with Madrimov because it went to decision. Everyone's like, oh, Madrimov's not known. Terence should knock him out. He's a tricky fighter. Madrimov had that herky-jerky style, and it's hard to time, but you did what you had to do to win. So what are your thoughts when people say, like, they use that as the measuring stick? Like, oh, he knocked out Spence, but he had a hard time with Madrimov.
I just laugh because I look at Madrimov fight like it was a cool fight, but I was in control of the whole fight. I never felt like I was threatened or in trouble in no way, shape, or form in that fight. I don't feel like it was as close as everybody say it was. I don't feel like I had to fight in a fight where I had to change anything up. I don't feel like I had to do anything different than what I was doing. I was just boxing. I was, taking my time in there. I was enjoying being back in the ring. I would say that. I was enjoying being back in the ring. And yes, Madrimov is a tricky fighter, and he's herky-jerky, and, he made some things difficult at times. But at the same time, we won the fight.
Yep.
We move on, and now we're looking for a bigger opportunity and a legacy fight with Canelo.
And spinning back on Canelo, he was on the Ring podcast, and he was talking about how he didn't want to give David Benavidez the fight because he was being disrespectful. I think it was, and they asked him, they said, well, Terence hasn't really been saying anything crazy about you. And he's like, yeah, he hasn't. I don't know if you saw the interview, but do you feel like he's kind of like sunning you in that sense, like, yeah, you better not disrespect me or I won't give you this fight?
No, not at all. Not at all. I just think that, when you look at the history of Canelo, when you look at all the fighters that was disrespectful, calling them out, there was a lot of them, and he fought all of them, from Shane Mosley to, Laura and them, when you, Danny Jacobs and them, Sanders. When you look at all the fighters that was disrespectful to Canelo, he was fighting them. But I just think from a Mexican standpoint, when you got two Mexicans, you know, that's one been extra disrespectful towards the other, he just took that personal, more so personal, on the the race aspect about it than the sport.
Yep.
He took the sport out of it, and he just felt as if he wasn't going to give Benavidez the payday that he wanted, just because he felt something different in that moment.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, I wouldn't say unfortunate because for you, it benefits you. You're probably gonna get the fight, right? But it's definitely intriguing as to why that didn't materialize for David Benavidez. I would have loved to see that fight. I think a lot of people would have. But getting to the disrespectful thing, I do want to follow up with the Tio situation. We all know Tio's been very public about saying some pretty wild stuff to you, man. You talked to him in Riyadh. What happened there?
No, we just had some words, and he said what he said, and I don't got no problem with it. You know what I mean? I have a problem with him using racial slurs to promote and to try to get fights, but at the same time, knowing Tio for so long, it just bothered me because I supported Tio through it all.
Yeah.
And that's why I took it personal with him, because I always was the one that said he was gonna be at the top. I was the only one in top rank that was like he was gonna beat Lomachenko. I was pushing it like, man, he's gonna beat that dude. I was supporting him. I was there for him to come at me the way that he was, and turn on me and having a say so like, oh well, telling Kell Brook to whoop me and show me who the real champ is. It was like, dang.
Was that the first thing?
Was the first thing.
Okay, there's a clip out there that I don't think has been posted, but I've seen it. He tried to dap you up, and you was like, nah, bro, nah. Like, I think it was before that fight, and you didn't want to dap him up. You're like, I don't need that fake stuff. Was that when it first kind of started for you and Tio?
Yeah, for sure. You know what I mean? Because I'm genuine.
Right.
Tio fought on my undercards a couple of times, more than a couple of times, but everything that I do in the sport of boxing is always genuine. I never, cared about the extraness. That's why when you see I'm supporting somebody, I'm supporting them from the heart. I don't support them just to try to backstab them in the back or feel like I need to be where they at or try to take the limelight off of them when they there. I just support them just for who they are, as a person, as a fighter. We all in it for the same reason, to get our family out of the situation or to make it to, the top.
Yeah, was it? I think you said you were tight with Tio, and you came up with him when he was young at Top Rank. Do you think it was a little more just like disappointing for you, just being like the elder, like, damn, bro, like that's where we going, instead of like, if that was anyone else that you didn't come up with, it was just like a random opponent, someone you didn't have a personal relationship with, would it have looked different for you? Would you have not have accepted his apology, or you gave Tio the benefit of the doubt because you and him were tight at one point?
No. It wasn't like, because, he said what he was, what it was. Like, I didn't have to go upside his head. I didn't have to do none of that for what? Just imagine me punching Teofimo and breaking my hand. Now I done missed out on the biggest fight of my career, all behind emotions. Like, that's something that I would have did when I was younger, but I move smarter now. I don't let people navigate my life and alter where I'm trying to go or what I'm trying to accomplish. A young-minded person to be like, oh, well, he should have did this or he should have did that. That's not a real man in my eyes. A real man thinks strategically, and he know where he want to go, and he's not going to let any clouds, judges, where he's got his sights set on.
That's amazing to hear, man. Because there's a lot of people online saying Terrence needs to smack him upside the head and whatnot, but that's the internet. And that's awesome that, you took a different route and took the mature route. There's bigger things ahead for you, man. Before we wrap this up, assuming you get the Canelo fight, you win, right? How many more fights are we going to see out of Terence Crawford?
I don't know. Like I said before, it's one fight at a time right at this moment. This is a big opportunity for me, and I'm not thinking about nothing but Canelo at the moment. So after September 13th, and my hand is rose, we can talk about it.
It's amazing, man. Bud, I appreciate the time, man. It's good seeing you again as always. Thank you for the time.
Appreciate it.